Welcome to The Rest is Giant Robots, a conversation through the careers of writer Simon Furman and artist Andrew Wildman. Recollections and revelations about the highs and the lows as creatives in comics, books, games, film and TV.
Welcome to episode 49 of The Rest is Giant Robots. My name's Andrew Wildman.
And my name's Simon Furman. And we are here again, just one shy of our big 50th, which we're going to be talking a bit about later.
Yeah. Big 50th is a good one. I did the edit of it a couple of days ago after we spoke to our awesome guests
Yep.
who did nearly all the talking, which was good. That's why we had them.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting edit to do with four of us in the virtual room, essentially. But it all worked out really well. I was so worried about there being some like technical problems that would like completely compromise the whole thing. No, the sound didn't show up for this person. But it was all there. All the content was there, so it's just chopping it together. So that was good.
Yeah, I think Nick just cut through the technology problems. You know, he was going to be heard, wasn't he? You know, this is Nick Roach, and of course our other guest is James Roberts.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a bit more about that soon, but hopefully we will be trailering that in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah. Yes, I'm just going to put through some little bits of trailers so you can get some snippets before it actually goes live.
But that's next time. So what are we talking about this time, Andrew?
What's left to talk about, Simon? We've spoken about everything.
Yes.
No, we're going to talk about our new little passion project that we're not starting, that we're restarting.
We're restarting our engines.
Restart the engine, yeah, which is it's just been there for so long in the background, and it needs to be done. It so needs to be done, and in some ways, it's become, as time has gone on, and when we thought about doing it and looked back at the previous material done, I always loved the material. I always loved the idea, the kind of the theme, the environments, the characters. I liked designing them, all that kind of thing. But this many years later, because it was turn of the century, wasn't it? So it was like 25 years ago, really, that we were
Oh yeah,
we were doing that stuff.
Yeah, it was sort of just into the new millennium sort of discussion and all the groundwork and the various versions we did of it, because we did it as the little motion comic version that Adam helped us out with, and then we turned it into a whole animated pitch document, and there may even have been a sort of third incarnation of it.
The sort of animation pitch, I think, went through a couple of variations, and the biggest change with those different things that we did was obviously the comic one was a bit more. I mean, not adult as such, but it was a bit grittier. And then both some of the themes, but also visually, when we did it as an animation pitch, we made it look like animation. I kind of redesigned thing and made it a bit more friendly, a bit more colourful.
Yeah.
Colours that popped. The characters very specifically had their own colourway and all that kind of stuff to make it work in the world of animation. But so that tended to change the potential age group that it was going to be targeted at. But the one thing that it did retain was the thing that you'd always wanted it to be initially when you first pitched it, was a bit kind of steampunk. I can remember you coining it as steampunk Thunderbirds, which encapsulated exactly what it was. It was kind of like Thunderbirds, so they were like a crew who solve problems rather than being a battling force as such. But then it was steampunk rather than
it was that sort of enhanced Victoriana feel to it, of a sort of Victorian age of machines and industrial revolution that just it didn't sort of evolve in the same way. And at the
yeah,
time, steampunk felt a very good fit for something a sort of theme, if you like, and this idea of industrialization gone wild and out of
yeah,
control and on a scale. And and the problem with that are over time that these machines were just sort of effectively out of date, big clunky things,
yeah,
and continually needed fixing. And then there was a sort of more existential threat in there as well, and some
yeah.
some boardroom shenanigans and evil industrialists and that kind of thing, which some of which will still be in there, definitely. But
Yeah, the steampunk thing was like you say was a thing at the time, very much at the turn of the century, and aesthetically it just worked really, really well. But we've had a rethink about that, haven't
we
we?
have, yes, yeah. It's. I think it's just going to be. I think of your designs, and I think of that sort of wrought iron work everywhere. That sort of design of the sort of the engine's sort of base of operations and the girders and the beams and everything, and that kind of it just when I looked at it again, it just felt like, oh, that's been done a long time ago now.
Yeah,
and and so you came up, and I think we might as well share the creative process so far. You came
yeah,
up with a nice twist on that, didn't you, instead of steampunk?
yeah. I Because we were beginning to think of it, yeah, think about sort of restarting the engine, and essentially in those initial conversations, it was a continuation, but just an updating of that old aesthetic. But then I rewatched recently. Well, it's a couple of things really. One, obviously, I've spent a lot of time in London working on Luther, and then because of the storyboards, I had lots of reference of you know pictures I'd taken in London for Luther. But obviously, Luther and London, a lot of people think of London as very Victorian, and we with the one of the kind of key locations with the original version of the engine was St Pancras. That's one you mentioned that kind of
Mm.
encapsulated that Victorian um, uh, kind of Gothic, Victorian Gothic kind of aesthetic, and that was good. But the thing about London is that it isn't that. I mean, clearly there is a lot of Victorian, but it's mostly Georgian anyway. If you're
Mm.
going down Regent Street and places like that, it's mostly Georgian. That's what the grandeur of London is all about. But then working on Luther, we were more sort of in some of the grubby back streets, some of the buildings that was done sort of post-war, well, pre and post-war, but that kind of period,
Mm.
30s, 40s, 50s. And I was looking at how kind of grim as an environment that is, and that's what Luther's all about. And so when I was doing some new concept stuff for the engine, I was using some of that photo reference, and so that was one element of it. The other element of it was that I recently rewatched I think it was five part series, I think, um, dramatization of the disaster that happened at Chernobyl in
Mm.
what is now Ukraine, but was then the Soviet Union. Or what was it already Ukraine? I can't remember. Anyway, um, and that very kind of almost brutalist, austere architecture, and also the industrial side of it. So the engine was never going to be about nuclear technology,
No.
but those old kind of nuclear plants, I thought, well, that's interesting. I like the hardness and the grimness of that kind of architecture.
Mm.
And then another thing with the Luther, which didn't make it into the final film, but was in the original script, was there was a lot of stuff happening around Battersea Power Station. And I know that you'd been working on something around Battersea Power
Mm.
Station for Transformers, and I thought that's really nice as well. So pulling those things together, I thought let's set it in a not in a a kind of frozen Victorian era, but more a frozen post-war era, that kind of
Mm,
mid-century, a more oppressive feel, less decorative and more oppressive. And it felt like it could work. It feels industrial, it feels bleak,
mm,
and it also leans more into less of a gothic horror sci-fi, and more of a kind of a noir horror.
yeah.
Uh, you think of 50s London. Yeah, so I kind of mentioned that to you,
Mm.
and I think it just seems to chime more now for where we are aesthetically in terms of fiction and you know,
Yeah. And some elements will stay the same. We're more or less going to keep the same team. I think
yeah,
they were very solid and well developed characters in the initial incarnation, but around that, I think we're going to change some of the trappings of the supporting cast, the the sort of what's going on in the series, what's it about, apart from, yes, it's a super, over industrialized London or whatever, in the
mm,
shadow of a new technological London. That kind of vibe is still going to be there, but I think we wanted a new, what's the story behind the story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I feel it just I feel it's coming. I mean, I did some kind of first look pieces.
Hmm.
I don't know if we shared any of those, have we? We might have done. No, but we will be doing that. We'll share some of the first look,
Yeah.
some tweaks to the characters, and definitely the the environment and how that'll work. But big for me is I want to do it more like storyboards. We're almost doing it as a movie on paper.
Mm.
So you're going to script it like
Yep.
a
Yep.
screenplay rather than a comic script.
Yeah. And each sort of, I mean, obviously we're starting with one story with the view to go into a second story and a third story. And
Mm,
we want that we want each of them to be sort of very self-supportive in and of their own right, in case we don't do a second or a third. Hopefully we do, but
yeah,
it's got to have that sort of whole movie integrity about it. This is a story, beginning, middle, and end. We take our characters on their arcs, different arcs through the storyline, and
yeah,
we end up with the engine group in a different place to where they started.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so do you, just as a question on the kind of scripting side of things, do you write all your kind of any comic book work that you do? Although you mostly work in games now, don't you? But any comic work you do you always write it now at like a movie script, or do you still
No,
do comics script
no,
layout?
anything I do creator owned, like 5 Points, the Gyre, to the death, the engine, I do in screenplay format because I think it increases the collaborativeness of it, and it just means you don't have to dismantle as much because you will have a better visual sense of how to portray the scenes. So I think the screenplay is just the easier and better option. But no,
Mm,
say with Skull Island, say with Powerplex for Battersea Power Station Store,
mm,
those are conventional comic strips with panels and dialogue and everything else.
yeah. Do you find it difficult to flip from one to the other? And do you find that one kind of way of thinking bleeds into the other, or do you manage to kind of keep that slight
Not
difference
not
separated?
really. I mean, because I'm doing screenwriting as well. We've got the movie project that we talked about in the video preamble,
Yeah,
and then also something else I'm working on is screen rather than a printed page. So it's fairly easy to swap back and forth. The
mm,
only thing I think I find it more difficult the other way, to go back to comic
right.
slightly, because it's like, oh, I've got to think about everything at this stage instead of just that sort of flow of story.
Yeah, I guess you're a bit more nimble with
Yeah,
screenwriting. So,
you
yeah,
know, I mean, I love screenwriting because more or less it's just dialogue punctuated by the occasional screen direction.
yeah,
And so you let the dialogue lead the story, really, and the visuals are, of course, are important, but you know, it should almost be readable without the scene lines.
yeah. And I suppose that so that then makes it easier for you to make it more character driven then because you are
Yes.
literally thinking about people delivering lines.
Yeah, and sometimes with comics it's easy to fall into a trap where you're not thinking voices quite so much. But when
Yeah.
you're writing a screenplay, you're always thinking, well, I'm writing, this is that character. It needs, what they're saying needs to sound like them. It needs to sound like the way they would deliver a line
Mm,
because it is going to be spoken at some point.
yeah.
Whereas comics can sometimes seem flatter and less distinct, one character from another. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you try to get those character into the way that the lines are spoken, even if they're just printed. But
Mm,
it's, obviously you're trying harder with a screenplay to make it sound in your head like the way you want it to hear on the screen.
mm, yeah. Yeah. And so I think this is the perfect approach for us in a even in the printed thing. Because we are both doing that. So yeah, you'll write a script because that's the way you work a lot now. I'm not used to working from comic scripts anymore. I mean,
Mm.
I've done something recently where it was comic script, and it was like, oh, I really had to get my head back into it because I hadn't done.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time I did I can't remember the last time I did any commissioned comics work. It's been a long time. I mean,
Mm.
because with my own projects, I don't know. I just sometimes I'm just literally drawing from bullet points I've written down on a piece of paper, because it's my own thing. I can just go through it however feels appropriate at the time, but which is probably a hideous lack of planning. But for me, it just kind of makes sense. Um, but I've also been commissioned to do um, uh, a kind of a GI Joe thing. It's actually Action Force, like
Mm.
6-page Action Force script. Um, And I'm finding that difficult. A, it's a writer I'm not, familiar with. Um, it's proper comics in a way, although it's not a mainstream publisher by any means. But so getting my head around that is a bit awkward. But working from a script and then the way that I'll be doing it is like storyboards, not like drawing a page of comic strip art.
Yeah.
Move things, but like you said the other day to me, will we move panels around a little bit just to give it a bit more kind
Mm.
of, you know, dynamic visual layout, if you like, on the pages. And we will do some of that, but
Yeah.
essentially it will be all roughly 16 by 9, panels on the page just to get that cinematic feel.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm used to that. So visually, it will look a lot like storyboards or a lot like the way that I've done my latest storyboard work, which is Luther, because I've learned different techniques, different rendering techniques, different ways of you know
Mm.
getting characters down on the page, kind of thing. And I'm really looking forward to it. Really excited to kind of get
Yeah.
into it.
Me too. And as we were saying again in the preamble for our Prime viewers, some of this is just a matter of clear mental space and time when you've got other sort of work on, and that's got deadlines and that's got other people sort of slightly sort of tapping their watch and saying, come on, get this done. And really what you want is this lovely elusive window of a clear week or something, just
Yeah,
to bore right down into it and get it laid out properly and discussed and retooled and everything. Because before I ever go to script with create your own stuff, I always kind of want my co-collaborator to be invested in the storyline before it gets as far as script, and it may still change again, but just to flesh out the outline together, sort of discuss that, break it down, throw stuff out. That's the kind of stage that needs some sort of clear mental space and time.
Yeah. I mean, when you're working on the gyre, I don't know how it works in terms of your film work, but when you're working on things that are not, like the stuff you're doing for games, where it's literally, you're on the clock kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you put aside time? I remember Oxygen was largely a lockdown project, but obviously Horizon was pre all of that. What worked really well for me was I was working on a kids animated TV show called Rough Rough Tweet and Dave, and I was mostly in the studio in London working on that. But I negotiated working for them 4 days a week, so I had one day a week where I could really lean into getting Horizon done.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's just being able to manage little chunks of time. But if you know when they are, because we're professionals, we can, to a large degree, we can switch it on and off. We don't have to sit there, waiting for the muse, whatever, so much. But yeah, that is the challenge. But I'm sure we'll find a way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that will all work out. Like I say, the way of deadlines is windows will just appear, and then it's just a matter of, you know, not going, oh, phew, I've got some time off. It's no, I've got some time to spend on the engine or the gyre or whatever else.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of having to justify that, isn't there? Is this the
Yeah.
best way to spend my time? Because that room needs decorating, or
Yeah, but again, as we were saying, there's a great satisfaction and and a great joy to co-create something that is not subject to
yeah,
a committee or publisher or you know six different opinions, and sometimes people just putting feeling they have to say something, and that sort of can just derail something that you just go, oh really, are we focusing on that? So I think it's lovely to be able to rise or fall on your own instincts and just feel, no, I think that's good, I think that's got sort of proper chops about it. And I think that's where the joy of creating your own stuff is. You aren't overseen in that same way.
yeah, very much so. And also for the engine, I think it's interesting that it is, like we said, best part of 25 years old. Um, I mean, we probably first started doing it in '99, I guess, 2000. Um, and yet now feels right. It feels like it needed to wait this, for me, just
Mm,
visually, it feels like it needed to wait this long before it gets properly handled.
yeah, and I think, I mean, it's not like we didn't bring out engine stuff back then. We did. The motion comics
Yeah.
were things. They were chunks of story. So, I don't feel it was completely abandoned back then. We did our bit of storytelling, and it felt like, okay, that was great, it fitted that time, but now it does feel like it needs a proper overhaul and a real refocusing.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, no, it's good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Its time has come. I'm also going to be doing. I'm going to try and do interesting things to help promote it. So it will be no surprise to people that we will be doing this as a Kickstarter campaign. for many reasons. We've both got experience in Kickstarter now, so we know how to kind of best, leverage that in some ways. And obviously, promotion is everything. So not just examples of pages, maybe a short chapter that people can see, but there'll be concept work that people can see. But I also want to do some little animations, so like some little teaser trailers with music and sound and everything. So that's going to take some time, but I really, really want to do that. Just to get some motion, write some music for it, just to get it to feel like a little kind of movie trailer or a TV series trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's going to be exciting once we get to that stage where we can start to think outside the story, Kickstarter extras,
Yeah,
video stuff. It's going to be fun doing that promotion and and then hopefully getting it into people's hands.
yeah, yeah. So two things in terms of timeline. So the first thing is some kind of overview, so we can then begin to overlap on the initial creation process. So
Yeah,
once we've got an overview, then obviously you need to start thinking about the script, and that all takes time and energy and effort and whatever.
yeah,
But once we've got a bit more of an overview, then I can start to visualize concept, some stuff that won't necessarily end up in it, but just to visualize more of a feel for the world
mm,
that we're interpreting. So that's going to be great to get that, and all being well, we will have stuff ongoingly to show. We'll certainly post stuff on
mm.
um, Patreon and social media, but Patreon first, and then hopefully something to show at TFNation. That's
Yeah,
our plan.
yeah. Hopefully, God, that's only a month away. We should talk about TFNation because yes, we're both going to be there. That's all announced now, which is great, and we will be doing. We can, I think, tell everyone. Yeah, why not? That we're doing the Rest is Giant Robots live again or on stage at least.
Yeah,
Um, so you will be able to, excuse me, be part of the live studio audience, as it were,
yeah,
or live
yes.
auditorium audience. Yeah.
I was so pleased and touched by how many people we got in the room when we did it
Mm,
last year, because we were like, how's this going to go? I mean, these people, TFN attendees have seen us talk about all sorts of stuff. Are they going to want
yeah,
to come and see us again? But it was a different spin, a different vibe, a different kind of thing we were doing, and there
yeah,
were so many people there. I just thought this is awesome.
yeah, and it was lovely to have live reaction to what we were saying, and
Yeah.
that sense of because obviously we record these things in a slight vacuum. We never know whether we're saying anything remotely interesting. Probably not, but in front of in front of a live audience, there was that lovely sort of the occasional laugh, a sort of a clap, and it just suddenly you sort of get, oh yeah, this is lovely having
Mm,
that feedback.
mm.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and also um, based on what we were kind of talking about, what that episode essentially was about, it's a great opportunity to actually have questions and answers in the auditorium.
Mm,
That was great. I always love Q&A sessions, and
yeah,
yeah, with some really good questions. So nice to be able to have that Q&A and it be part of an episode.
yeah.
So that
So,
was a lot of fun.
so hopefully we'll be there. We'll talk a bit more about our plans for the engine, and as Andrew said, we'll have on screen some of the early visuals that Andrew's been
Mm,
doing, which will be wonderful.
mm. Hopefully, we get some oohs and ahs.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh, this is different. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's rather wonderful that we're going to be there, and just I mean, it should be a great guest list Vince DiCola, who I can't wait to see again, and
Yeah.
and hear again, because he's doing his live concert on the Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that is very exciting, and yeah, we'll probably cover sort of some other, because there's a few anniversaries around this year. We'll kind of maybe steer our discussion towards some of those things, like the animated movie, like Target 2006,
Yeah.
uh, a bit like, and maybe a bit about Beast Wars as well, because we were
Yeah.
involved quite early on with it, really.
We were, yes. Just when I thought Transformers didn't exist anymore, suddenly we got that call. Do you want to come to a convention in America with the Beast Wars? And I'm like, what the hell's Beast Wars?
Yeah, quite.
And then I was sent a VHS cassette, I think, of some episodes, and I was like, wow, this is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It won awards. It won some design awards, which is,
Mm,
and I think as much as now people might look at it and think, God, that's clunky. At the time, it was
yeah.
yeah, awarded for its design consistency, which is a story in itself. So
And
we'll
it was
talk.
very smartly written. It had intelligence behind it, and Bob Ford and Larry DiTilio, the script editors, were really kind of in control of the series. It felt like they had a plan, and it may have changed along the way, but they steered a very steady ship. They wrote episodes, and just generally it had a sort of integrity to it that some animated shows can be a bit all over the place, but
Yeah,
Beast Wars felt like it had a proper spine that developed over the course of its three series.
yeah, yes, yeah, and you had the opportunity to write some of
Yeah,
that, which
it gave me my start in screenwriting. So yeah, big stuff to talk about there. So yeah, that's TFNation. We look forward to see as many of you as we can, and like I say, come armed if you're coming to the Rest is Giant Robots live at TFNation. Come armed with some questions, because
yeah.
you can feature on the Rest is Giant Robots.
I think what I also might try and do for when we're at TF Nation, which I tried to do last year and the year before and failed quite miserably, is actually take some footage while we're there, because it would be
Mm,
great for people watching this, the patrons who watch this video version. It'd be nice to show them some stuff, if
yeah.
they're not going to be there. So we'll
Well,
do
let's
a
see
walk
about that.
through.
Just do some exclusive content from TF Nation that will be purely for our Patreon viewers.
I think so. I think they deserve it, yeah, because they can't get there. For our viewers in other countries and whatever,
Mm,
definitely be fun to
yeah,
do
yeah.
that.
We'll do some live from TF Nation snippets as
Yeah,
well. So yeah, that's great. Now, what else have we got coming up? Well, we have episode 50 next
yeah,
time round, and wow, hard to believe that we, we've got to 50, and or will have. And so, yeah, we have got two special guests, as we have mentioned before. We have Nick Roach and James Roberts,
yeah,
and we actually don't do much talking, which is great. We
yeah.
take a back seat.
We do it. Yeah, there are chunks where we do. Well, you
Yeah.
do, but no, it's mostly them, and they're very good. It was
Mm,
really good to have kind of different voices in the room, and because it always feels to me like they are a kind of a more recent version of us, because they are that kind of writer and artist team. So, and
mm.
things had changed so much by the time they came along, and they were, the people who were very much instrumental in how things did change around Transformers. So
Oh, for sure. And
it's
we
nice.
get I was going to say, we get their perspective, the fan perspective for a start. They came that route of growing up with Transformers, which we didn't,
Uh,
and then that route into becoming sort of proper fans, if you like, keeping that torch going through, the fanzines and fanfics and online groups, right up to becoming pros themselves. So it's a really, really interesting chat.
Yeah, I found that really fascinating when they were talking about the whole fan side of it in those slightly fallow years
Mm.
of Transformers. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting to hear them talk about that and how involved they were with it, and also what was really interesting was that it was sort of pre in social media when they were, just
Mm.
on little news groups and newsletters and all that kind of stuff. Wow, yeah, that must
Yeah.
have been so cool to be part of all of that.
Well, the fan community, really started with ads in comic books for these groups, or a letters page or something, and an address to write to. But you'll get all this in episode 50. But it's fascinating to listen to how the fan community kept going and then sort of grew behind the scenes, so that by the time Beast Wars rolled around, there was still an audience, a grown-up audience for that show, because they
Yeah,
kind of kept the torch going with, like I say, uh, just fan groups and love for the whole thing.
yeah, and I suppose what was interesting for them was to then be creatives, in on that product on Transformers and knowing who their readership were. Like we didn't have that, did we? We just
No.
well, there were comic readers out there, and and they were reading it. I mean, the sales figures when we were on it were really good.
Yeah,
But we didn't really know who they were. But James and Nick knew who those people were,
yeah,
which which is a whole different thing to do, isn't it? Knowing your audience. Um,
yeah. And it's lovely that they, they talk a bit about how things that I wrote, you drew, became the sort of foundation for some of their fan fiction that followed. So there was a lot that spun out of Generation Two, and the stuff that was we left hanging was sort of, you know the food for them to become the creatives they are today. So it's lovely the way the sort of almost circular nature of the whole thing has gone, that you know we start off creating this stuff, it inspires Nick and James, and comes round to the point where we're all just four fellow professionals chatting on a podcast.
four hacks in the room. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
It was good.
So,
Yeah.
so yes, you've got that to look forward to. It's a bumper-sized one. There was just no shutting Nick up. So, it's a bigger than 40 minutes. No, no, it's utterly wonderful that, you know, we get such good. I mean, we could have carried on for another hour, I reckon,
We
quite
could have easily
comfortably.
got 2 episodes out of it, but yeah,
Yes, but it's sort of better for being what it is. But it is, you've got a lovely sort of, in comic parlance, giant size issue of the rest is giant robots coming next time.
yeah, yeah, very good. What else have we got
Well,
that we
obviously we will, we've got to 50, and we will keep going. We've already mentioned the Live from TFNation episode. We will be pushing on with our respective careers, talking about more movies, and hopefully having more guests on. It always seems to work really well. So we will try and get a few more special guests lined up.
yeah, maybe just one at a time though,
Yeah, yes. Yeah, poor Andrew has to edit it. And
because we do. There are yes, because there are people out there that we've said in the past about getting on. Certain people who would be good to talk to.
mm,
Editors we've worked with, other artists you've worked with. You know, yeah, I think it'd be really good. And doesn't have to be Transformers either, does it? We
no.
tend to kind of lean in that direction, but that's just the rest stuff, But
mm,
there's lots of other content. So it'd be interesting to have a think about. I mean, if anybody's got any ideas of what kind of guests that they would like us to try and dig out, any
yeah.
creators that they think that are kind of relevant, could always be interesting. But it would be nice to get some other people on, because there's plenty of them out there. It'd be
Yeah.
good to talk to some of the people that are, were part of the things that we've done. You've said about getting Jeff on before. I'd love to get JP on. I think JP
Yes.
would be good to have.
JP would be great. I mean, we could do a sort of Regen 1 special, couldn't we?
That would be good. Yes.
Talk about Regen and maybe a bit of Transformers 84. See, maybe a good guess would be, if we can get him on, it would be Guido.
Yeah.
Who was part of the team and also did 84. So, maybe we could have Guido and JP. Oh dear, it's two people again, but there you go.
Well, I'm sure I can handle it.
But yes, do send us your suggestions, because we are still in touch with most people from back in the old Marvel days, or IDW or Dreamwave. So yeah, send us your suggestions. We'd be very interested to hear.
And so the question I need you to answer from my previous WhatsApp question was my idea about the name The Engine.
Yes.
Do you remember that, what I asked you about that? About because it was the name of the team?
Yes. Well, I mean, the title originally was The Engine Industrial Strength, wasn't it? It sort of had a subtitle. My only worry is that The Engine is a very generic name, and whether we need for the next incarnation of it to have it sort of more unique in some way, as an IP, as a logo.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the idea of that being the kind of slang name of the industrial London. That whole place is just known as the Engine, because that's what it is. It's driving everything.
Yeah, I mean, I still like it, and maybe it just needs its subtitle.
I think subtitles are good. It's almost like Star Wars: The New Hope. Or
yes, yeah. I'd be completely happy with The Engine Industrial Strength still.
Yeah.
It sort of does what it says on the tin or whatever. That feels like the thing we started with, and I'd still like to hold on to.
Yeah, keep the name, just slightly shifting as to what it is, what it actually means.
Yeah, exactly, and what that relates to, and through the course of the series, how they will evolve.
Yeah. Good. So you need to find some time that you don't have.
Yes, yeah.
Start writing some stuff, so I can find some time that I don't have to start drawing some stuff, and so we've got stuff to show at TFN and before.
Yes.
To our
We will do that. We've got a month or so till TFNation. So
it's going to fly by, isn't it? Come on.
yeah.
World Cup football matches to watch in between all of that. So.
Oh God. Well, I haven't seen many that have held my attention so far, so that shouldn't be a problem.
I think I've seen most of them.
Oh God.
I know.
Poor you.
I know. Some of them have been amazing. Some of the matches you'd think, yeah, all right, I might give that a watch, and it's just like the level of play. It's been phenomenal. Just think, wow, we don't stand a chance.
Maybe we could introduce hydration breaks into the Rest is Giant Robots. We just have a moment where we stop talking and have a drink.
Yeah, no, we're men of a certain age. We need to have dehydration breaks.
Yeah. Anyway, right, I think we have more or less reached our allotted time. And like I say,
get thrown out.
yeah, like I say, next time is bumper sized, so you will get a lot more chatter for your listening time. I don't know, that didn't work out, but anyway, yeah, keep that in, because it just didn't work out anyway. Right, we will say goodbye. Thank you very much for listening in, and do join us next time for our bumper 50th issue.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Nice chatting, Simon. See you all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Rest is Giant Robots. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing for more and maybe share with like-minded friends. This has been a Wildfur production.